Hi, I'm Rachel, and I'm here to do my October 2018 book haul. I've never done back-to-back videos before. I just filmed my recent Sammy Rohr 2014 video. But it is now Halloween, and I am trying to get everything under wraps before NaNoWriMo starts. Luckily, well, I live in a condo, and my property manager gave out bags of candy to kids, but they won't be trick-or-treating, so I certainly won't be distracted by the door. Although, I do kind of wish that I'd get trick-or-treaters. I've been living in apartments and condos in the DC area for over a decade, and I've never been able to actually give out candy. At least this year I didn't buy any candy. I do not need that around the house. Anyway, on to the books. It's a relatively small haul, which makes me happy for my my purse. And it also technically is a September and October haul, because in September I dedicated my book haul to the banned book scavenger hunt, where I picked up 6 books, but in my defense they were free. I'll link that down below. So anyway, my haul begins on the 1st of September when I attended the National Book Festival in Washington, D.C., and I picked up a book to get signed for myself, as I often do, and that book was Pachinko by Min-Jin Lee. I'd been excited to try this book out ever since it first came out, and I really loved the hardback cover, but this one is nice too. And plus it goes with my cover for Free Food for Millionaires, which I got a couple of years ago for free from LitHub. So I'm so glad I have both of these books. I hear that these two plus a third book are supposed to be somewhat of a series. And I will read from the back of Pachinko. History is seldom kind. In Min-Jin Lee's best-selling magisterial epic, 4 generations of a poor, proud immigrant family fight to control their destinies, exiled from a homeland they never knew. In the early 1900s, teenage Sunja, the adored daughter of a crippled fisherman, falls for a wealthy stranger at the seashore near her home in Korea. He promises her the world, but when she discovers she is pregnant and that her lover is married, she refuses to be bought. Instead, she accepts an offer of marriage from a gentle, sickly minister passing through on his way to Japan. But her decision to abandon her home and to reject her son's powerful father sets off a dramatic saga that will echo down through the generations. Richly told and profoundly moving, Pachinko is a story of love, sacrifice, ambition, and loyalty. From the bustling street markets to the halls of Japan's finest universities to the pachinko parlors of the criminal underworld, Lee's complex and passionate characters, strong, stubborn women, devoted sisters and sons, fathers shaken by moral crisis, strive and thrive against the indifferent arc of history. So I'm very drawn to this because I know so little about Korean and Japanese culture and history, and this will be a nice way to get in with the sprawling epics that I love. I'm wondering if maybe ultimately this family ends up in America for this story, which takes place closer to the modern age. The modern age being, I guess, the late 20th century, early 21st. Next, I'll show you this book. This is Embodying Hebrew Culture, Aesthetics, Athletics, and Dance in the Jewish Community of Mandate Palestine by Nina S. Spiegel. I just rambled about it at length in the Sammy Rohr video because I read this for the 2014 Sammy Rohr Prize, so purchase justified. I was drawn to this book in particular because about 10 years ago I had another YouTube channel where I filmed various cultural events around town and posted them, and one was of an Israeli dance done by some kids at my synagogue. And of course, putting anything about Israeli dance, Israel, online just draws out trolls and all sorts of arguments about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I recently took that video down because I was just so sick of all the vitriolic messages. And one of the messages I often got was about how Israel co-opted Arabic dance, particularly in folk dancing, which I think is a rather ungenerous view of Israeli culture, particularly because half of Israelis are Mizrahi and Sephardi and come from Northern Africa and the Middle East. And this book goes particularly into the ways that Jews, and particularly Eastern European Jews, did try to force an idea of culture in Mandate Palestine of the 20s and the 30s. So I can't say that the culture was completely organic, because it wasn't. It was a very deliberate attempt to create a sense of personal identity. But I feel like this book goes into, well, it doesn't really try to justify it. It understands that Jews were persecuted in almost everywhere that they went. So the reason that they had to try to make it on their own rather than have something grow organically is because it was really their only way to have a strong sense of self in sort of a self-determined homeland. So yeah, it's a complicated history, and this really only touches on 4 examples of what Mandate Palestine Jews tried to do during that time and what sort of lived on to now and what doesn't. But it's a nice little stepping stone and empathetic one. Next, I attended a book launch for a friend. She had an essay published in this book. This is Open Your Gifts, Volume 2, 42 Lessons on Finding and Embracing Your Blessings in Disguise. GIFTS is an acronym for all sorts of self-affirming ways of living your life. The editor is Kim Coles, who is a comedian and star. Anyway, I've only so far read my friend's essay, but I do certainly want to read the rest. It was a lovely event that I went to. The book launch was really near me in College Park, Maryland, and unfortunately I was only there for half of it, and I didn't get to hear my friend speak, although Kim Coles did call up every author who was in this book to talk a little bit about their essays. I wish I had realized that before making my plans. And finally, I'll end with another friend's book launch, or at least a friend of a friend. This took place at the Maryland Renaissance Festival a couple of weeks ago, where there's a bookstore there called Page After Page, and every weekend of the festival they had writers of fantasy and steampunk and history come in to tout their books and sign them. And so I got a copy of Dagger and Coin by Kathy Macmillan. And she even dedicated it to our mutual friend. So this is the sequel to Sword and Verse, which came out a couple of years ago. It's an epic YA fantasy. In the last book, the heroine was sort of able to wake up the gods and upend an unjust system of government. And in this book, characters are picking up the pieces. And I kind of wonder if I might like this book better. In fact, our mutual friend likes the protagonist of this book better because she's a little bit spunky. So I'll read from the flap. Soraya Gama was meant to be Queen of Kalara until an Arnoth slave rebellion destroyed the monarchy in the capital city. Now, improbably, she sits on the new ruling council beside her former enemies, finally holding political power that she's always wanted, but over a nation in ruins. As she wants to rebuild Kalara, she can, at least, use what everyone once told her to hide, her brain. But not everyone is ready to accept the new equality that the ruling council has decreed between the Arnothim and the Kielarites. So when a slave ship arrives in the city, full of Anarthim captured before Kalara fell, civil unrest that has been bubbling since the rebellion erupts. Forced to confront her own prejudices, Soraya struggles to gain the trust of the Arnoth people she once disregarded and establish peace in what has become chaos. With the threat of attacks high, Gelti, a former guard captain, trains Soraya in self-defense. As the two grow close, tensions within the city ramp up, with danger, betrayal, and deception meeting Soraya everywhere she turns. Friends become foes, adversaries become companions, and the clashing of classes threatens to unravel all the good Soraya has been trying to do. Can Soraya, raised to be a proper Kilardi lady, learn to be a true leader? Or will the sins of the past forever haunt the footsteps of her future? So I think this is an intriguing premise, because we often deal with the rebellion part in YA epic fantasy, but we rarely ever deal with the aftermath and how you don't always and shouldn't always get a happy ending. Obviously, if people were repressed for that long, there's going to be some resentments and so forth bumbling under the surface. This always reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from Mockingjay, which also deals with the pernicious constancy of war. So on that happy note, I guess that wraps it up for me now. I will be back in a couple of days. I promise to be a little bit more upbeat because I have my reading wrap-up to do for October because I didn't do any Friday reads or anything this month. And I'm pretty happy with my turnout. I read 8 books this month, which is a high for me of late, and I kind of got myself back on track with my review videos because I've been making them sort of the month after I meant to, but with this Sammy Roy video, I did get it in right under the line, or I will, depending on when it uploads. After that, I will be uploading weekly NaNoWriMo vlogs like I did last year, where I update you daily on my word count and on the places I might go, the people I might see, because NaNoWriMo is a wonderful community building experience now where you don't just have to be in your room writing. There's so much stuff happening, at least in the DC area, that I'm so excited to go to. So I'll be uploading those weekly, and I won't be doing too much else on BookTube, but mid-month I do intend to come back to do an AuthorTube video. And then at the end of the month, I'll go ahead and do a November book haul and November reading wrap-up and that sort of thing. So I hope all of you Rhymos feel ready to tackle the season, because it's coming up in just a matter of hours, or for some of you, as I'm filming, it's already happened. And I hope that the rest of you on BookTube have a marvelous reading month in November, whether you're doing nonfiction November or novella November, which I just heard about and piques my interest because I write novellas, or I've written one at least, so I should try to look into that. But in the meantime, thanks so much for watching, everyone. Happy writing, happy reading, happy siren, and I'll see you next time.